Audio recording. Video recording. Alright, episode 4 of Sisyphus 52, Why Everything You Love Will End Like Game of Thrones. For folks who are new to this series, welcome. This is Sisyphus 52, a series wherein I make the same video over and over again, talking about cycles of pointless labor and inevitable failure. There won't be any spoilers for Game of Thrones for a fair chunk of this video, and I promise plenty of warning before I get into spoilery stuff. I've been watching a bunch of commentary videos about the last season of Game of Thrones. I'm not going to make a Sisyphus video about the show, but I do want to mark out just for where I stand, that I think the positioning of the pieces at the conclusion of the show makes sense, but the execution has been comically bad for about 2 seasons. I'll be coming back to that. Stay tuned. HBO has put a shitload of money into Game of Thrones, and it's been going pretty well for them. I want to talk about this in the context of a few other big deals, media-wise and funding-wise. I want to talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I want to talk about the United States presidential election cycle. All these stories over the last 10-ish years have had really deeply promising runs, featuring moving arcs for major characters, and stories that are sort of resonating series of justice that met with mass appeal. And within the last 4 or 5 years, all these stories got worse. They started to fall apart, the outcomes stopped making sense, and the messaging started to feel weirdly like it was casually supportive of right-wing extremism, even as they paid lip service to ideals of social justice. The thing about all of these stories is that they're impacted by how much they cost to tell. It takes a shitload of money to put them together, so they need to make a shitload of money back, just to break even. And it needs to go further than that, because the people you ask when you want a shitload of money are only willing to give it to you if they think they're going to make back even more in return. They expect a profit, and that means as many people as humanly possible need to get excited about the thing you're making. So what's the story you tell? You tell a story that tells your audience they're on the side of good, fighting a great evil. You ground that evil in real social problems that your audience feels, that they empathize with. You transpose the source of that evil onto a fictionalized villain. You sell a fictionalized solution, and you very carefully refuse to admit that the people watching your spectacle are vulnerable to the possibility of being collaborators in the evil they want to end. This comes up a lot in conversations about Oscar bait movies about race. You don't want to alienate the casual racists in your audience, so the racism the movie opposes can't look like racism looks in real life. The bigger your budget is, the bigger your audience needs to be. The bigger your audience needs to be, the fewer people you can afford to piss off. The MCU will stick their neck out, go ahead and alienate fans who empathize with literally Hydra rather than the good guys. But they aren't going to send a message that says you're doing anything wrong if you're hanging around hoping that Iron Man will come solve your problems. So what's the Sisyphean thing about this? Well, quick recap. Zeus punished Sisyphus in the afterlife by condemning him to push a boulder up a hill, but the boulder would always slip and roll back down before he made it. It was an eternity of pointless labor. Well, stories about what's wrong and how we fight it are practically by definition the most interesting kinds of stories. They're always going to be the ones that get the most popular. They're going to expand in budget and investment and interest. People are going to capitalize on them, and then they're going to get their sharp edges sanded down. You'll start coming away from them feeling a little emptier than last time, wondering why your heart isn't soaring with hope like before. And eventually, it'll all just look kind of bullshit. Alright. Spoiler time's coming. If you're gonna leave a like on your way out. And hey, why don't you go ahead and share this on Twitter or Facebook and ask your friends to remind you that you wanted to get back to it when you got all caught up on Game of Thrones. Close the video now if you don't want to know anything about what happens at the end of the series. It's obvious that what went wrong with Game of Thrones wasn't some vague systemic problem. David Benioff and D.B. Weiss decided they only wanted to take like 12 episodes to tell what was like 5 seasons worth of remaining story. The plot got jerky and unrealistic. Things started happening that were technically plausible, but not emotionally justified, and everything just felt awkward and rushed. The Game of Thrones show writers were working on a plot arc set out by a book series being written by a writer who is exceptional in 2 ways. He's exceptionally good at the craft, and he's willing to put absolutely everything else second to the primary goal of creating the text he wants to create, both aesthetically and morally. My hypothesis is, Benioff and Weiss probably felt fairly committed to telling the story that Martin was telling. Then they got out ahead of him, probably because Martin is taking his time to make sure that he can tell the story he wants to tell in a way that actually works. But Martin had told them, in broad strokes, how the story ends. Martin's story probably doesn't end in a way that's going to make fascists feel good about their enthusiasm in the show. I've seen some videos that make pretty solid cases for why the strict events of the show's ending make sense in the context of the themes that Martin has written. I'll link at least one of them in the description. It's a video that actually came out a few weeks before the end of the season predicting that Bran would wind up being the king. Because in stories that are honest about the reality that gaining power problematizes the integrity of the people holding it, triumph doesn't look like acts of violence committed against a big bad villain. And it certainly doesn't look like exterminating a mass population of some kind of aliens. Let's jump back into the layout of that story arc I put down earlier. You tell a story that tells your audience they're on the side of good, fighting a great evil. We're good there. The forces of fire, led by practically a dragon Daenerys Targaryen, fighting the evil of the coming winter. You ground that evil in real social problems that your audience feels, that they empathize with. Also done. Cold is bad. Hunger and starvation is bad. Also, climate change. What more blatant a symbol for climate change than the long night could you have? You transpose the source of that evil onto a fictionalized villain. Great. The Night King is the avatar of death, starvation, cold, and injustice. Super easy. You sell a fictionalized solution. Stab the one guy with a special knife. Awesome. Good. Done. And you very carefully refuse to admit that the people watching your spectacle are vulnerable to the possibility of being collaborators in the evil they want to end. And fuck. That's where we lose it. Because Daenerys was supposed to be the hero, and she brought winter to King's Landing even after the Night King was dead. It rained ash instead of snow, but everybody died all the same. And if Dany wasn't your avatar in the show, Jon Snow was. If you were expecting Dany to turn, then you were probably expecting Jon Snow to take the throne, to stand up to Dany before it was too late, to save everyone. Because we aren't complicit, right? The honorable soldiers in the north don't pillage and rape. The witty, rich dwarf doesn't back the genocidal dictator. We didn't do this. This isn't us. So Benioff and Weiss probably got those notes and talked to their funders at HBO, and the message was, fuck. We can't cancel it. Just get through it as quickly and as cheaply as possible. And that's one way very expensive productions can end. They can realize at some point that there's no way out without alienating huge swaths of their audience, so they pull the plug as much as they can and they run for the exits. Or they can try and pivot to victory stories that don't actually solve the problems the narrative raises. Or they can stick to their guns and lose all their funding before they even get to finish their story. Or we can destroy capitalism and build socialist models for epic media production. As long as Zeus is up there, though, the rock is going to keep slipping out of our hands and rolling back down the hill. Like this video to let me know that you care. It means a lot to me as a small YouTuber to see those gestures. Also, every comment makes my day. Both of those things are true, and they're both also helpful for metrics. But, do it because you will legitimately make my day. Subscribe if you want to see Sisyphus 52 videos when they come out, and ring the bell to get a notification as soon as they go live. I don't have a regular upload schedule, so I can't promise that if you look on a particular day, you'll see a particular video. So the bell's the best way to know when I'm putting things up and to avoid them getting lost in the shuffle. You can make your own joke about Season 8, Episode 5. I trust you. I have a Patreon where there are 47 slots left in the early adopters tier, where for $1 a month you can get access to all the Patreon benefits I provide or ever will. And I want to thank all the patrons I've got now: Chelsea Rose, Emmanuel Morales, Locomotia, Nicole Wooden, and Zaylee. If I'm pronouncing any of your names wrong, please let me know. And I want to extend a personal apology to Chelsea Rose, because that's the reward for $15 a month backers. Chelsea, I'm sorry I'm making these videos. Please forgive me. I'm going to try and keep the apologies to one per episode for as long as that's feasible, so you'll all have your own special episode, but apologies will be coming for any $15 plus patron and all the early adopters. Doing some rearranging in my house, so this room is very empty. I'm sorry if that's created a new echo. I really hope it didn't. Thanks so much for watching. I'm really enjoying making this series, and I'm hoping you're enjoying watching it. Bye.